Hey everyone, it's Nina. So, you know how the world sometimes feels a little bit, precarious? Like maybe all those dystopian novels weren't entirely fictional. Yeah, I get that. And while I'm not saying we need to start building underground bunkers, although not a terrible idea, right? It did get me thinking, where are the safest places in the US if the absolute worst were to happen? Specifically in the event of a nuclear war, which, let's be honest, is a terrifying thought. But in the interest of, knowledge and maybe a little peace of mind, I decided to dive into this. We're talking geography, population density, access to resources, the whole shebang. This isn't about fear-mongering, all right? It's about being prepared, about understanding the world around us a little bit better. So buckle up, nerd fighters, and let's talk about where to go when everything goes wrong. First up, we're heading north, way north, to the land of lobster rolls and lighthouses, Maine. Now, Maine consistently ranks high on these safest places lists, and for good reason. Think about it. Vast stretches of wilderness, more trees than people, and trust me, there are a lot of trees. And a coastline so jagged and island-filled, it's enough to make any invading force say, nah, too complicated. Plus, let's talk population density. Maine has one of the lowest in the US, meaning if things went south, you wouldn't exactly be fighting over resources with hordes of panicked citizens. Plus, it's a good distance from major military targets and urban centres, making it less likely to be a direct hit. So, yeah, Maine's got a lot going for it in the surviving the apocalypse department. Next, we're venturing to the Pacific Northwest, a region known for its stunning natural beauty and, you guessed it, more potential safe havens. Oregon, with its rugged coastline, towering forests and fertile valleys, offers a lot in the way of self-sufficiency. Imagine this. You're miles from any major city, surrounded by enough timber to build a small village. Not that you'd need to, hopefully. And with access to fresh water and potentially even arable land. Oregon's got that off-the-grid vibe down pat, which in this particular hypothetical scenario is a very, very good thing. Plus, have you ever had Oregon blueberries? Survival never tasted so good. Now, when you think of California, you probably picture Hollywood, Silicon Valley bustling cities, right? But California's a big state, with a lot of diversity in its landscape and population. Northern California, especially the areas north of San Francisco, offer some potential refuge, particularly if you're looking to get far, far away from densely populated areas. Think towering redwoods, rugged mountains, coastal communities that feel a world away from the hustle and bustle of Los Angeles. While you'd still be in earthquake country, Mother Nature works on her own schedule, folks, the relative isolation and natural resources of Northern California make it worth considering. Let's be real, Montana is practically synonymous with wide open spaces, and when it comes to surviving a global catastrophe, having some breathing room is definitely a plus. Western Montana in particular, with its sprawling ranches, towering mountain ranges, and let's be honest, more cows than people, offers a certain level of isolation that's hard to find elsewhere. Imagine this, you're learning to herd cattle with a backdrop of the Rocky Mountains. Okay, maybe it wouldn't be quite that idyllic, but you get the idea. Plus, Montana's got a certain independent spirit, a self-reliance that would come in handy if things ever went really wrong. Idaho, land of potatoes, friendly folks, and potentially a decent place to ride out a nuclear winter. Not literally, of course, but you know what I mean. Idaho often gets overlooked, but that's part of its charm, right? It's got that whole undiscovered gem thing going for it. But seriously, Idaho's mountainous terrain, abundance of natural resources. Did someone say potatoes? And distance from major cities make it a contender for our list. Plus, it's got that whole pioneer spirit thing going for it, a sense of self-sufficiency that would be invaluable in a crisis. Now, let's head east to the heart of Appalachia, to a state known for its rugged beauty and resilient people, West Virginia. West Virginia's got a lot going for it in the surviving the unthinkable department. Think about it. Dense forests, winding hollows, and a population that's no stranger to self-sufficiency. They say coal built West Virginia, and while that industry has seen better days, the spirit of resourcefulness and resilience remains. Plus, West Virginia's got something else going for it. Underground bunkers. Yes, you heard that right. The Greenbrier bunker, a Cold War relic built to house the US government in the event of nuclear war, is located right here in the Mountain State. Back to the Pacific Northwest we go, but this time we're venturing east of the Cascade Mountains to a landscape that feels a world away from the lush forests of the West. Eastern Washington is a study in contrasts. Arid plains, rolling hills, and a sky so vast it feels like it goes on forever. But don't let the stark beauty fool you. Eastern Washington has a certain rugged charm. It's a place where people live close to the land, where self-sufficiency is a way of life, and where the nearest neighbor might be a herd of cattle instead of another human being. In other words, it's exactly the kind of place that might just appeal to those looking to escape the chaos of a global crisis. Vermont, land of maple syrup, picturesque villages, and a certain independent streak that runs deep. Vermont's always been a little bit different, a little bit off the beaten path, and in this particular scenario, that's a good thing. It's rural, it's beautiful, and it's far from any major targets. Unless, of course, someone has a vendetta against Ben & Jerry's, in which case all bets are off. But seriously, Vermont's got that whole self-reliant, community-oriented vibe that would be crucial in a crisis. Plus, imagine hunkering down in a cozy cabin surrounded by snow-capped mountains with a lifetime supply of maple syrup. Okay, maybe that's a bit idyllic, but a nerd fighter can dream, right? Live, free or die, reads New Hampshire's state motto. And while that usually refers to a fierce sense of independence and self-governance, it also kind of works in this context, don't you think? New Hampshire, with its granite peaks, dense forests and charming small towns, has a lot to offer those seeking refuge from disaster. It's got that whole rugged individualism thing down pat, a spirit of self-sufficiency that would be crucial in a crisis. Plus, it's not exactly on the top of anyone's list of strategic targets, unless, of course, someone has a vendetta against maple syrup. What is it with me and maple syrup today? Okay, I know what you're thinking. New York, really? But hear me out. When we talk about New York, we often picture the 5 boroughs, the skyscrapers, the bustling streets. But New York State is huge, and upstate New York, with its rolling hills, vast forests, and charming small towns, feels a world away from the city that never sleeps. Upstate New York offers a certain level of isolation, with plenty of natural resources and a slower pace of life. It's the kind of place where people know their neighbors, where self-sufficiency is valued, and where you're more likely to encounter a deer crossing the road than a traffic jam. So there you have it, 10 potential safe havens in the US should the unthinkable occur. Now let me be clear, I'm not suggesting we all pack our bags and head for the hills, although again, not a terrible idea. This video isn't about fear-mongering, it's about knowledge, about understanding the world around us a little bit better. It's about asking what if, and exploring the possibilities, however unlikely they may seem, because at the end of the day, isn't it better to be prepared even for the worst-case scenario than to be caught off guard? And hey, even if the world doesn't end in a fiery apocalypse, fingers crossed, knowing where the most remote, resourceful and resilient places are, that's just good information to have. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.